Hello, someone Bart here, or you can call me Sully. Well, if you're going to tell by the shirt I'm wearing, it's time to look at some more SpongeBob SquarePants. With having already done 2 videos around him, the show celebrating its 20th anniversary, the first movie in its 15th anniversary, Comic-Con's announcement of another SpongeBob movie to be released next summer, and this being the first year since the passing of SpongeBob's creator, Steven Hillenburg, I think the next best thing to review with SpongeBob is the second movie released 4 years ago. And it's more crazy and more weird than the first film, even though it's not a sequel. The SpongeBob Movie, Sponge Out of Water. Plankton, or also known as Sheldon J. Plankton, has been trying to steal the secret formula for the Krabby Patties from the Krusty Krab for his restaurant across the street called the Chum Bucket. Yet SpongeBob and Mr. Krabs have always stopped Plankton from stealing the formula. But one day, Plankton admits defeat and gave Mr. Krabs his last penny, which turns out to be Plankton's disguise as the other Plankton is a robot. And the real one is able to steal the formula from inside Mr. Krabs' safe. Yet SpongeBob catches Plankton stealing the formula, and when trying to get the formula back, it disappears between SpongeBob and Plankton, and all of the Krabby Patties have disappeared as well. But Mr. Krabs and the town think Plankton stole the formula, and also led to believe that SpongeBob is working for Plankton. Yet both SpongeBob and Plankton know the formula has vanished before them, and they have to work together to get the formula back, all while Bikini Bottom becomes an apocalyptic wasteland, due to there being no more Krabby Patties. Now this is a interesting film to talk about, because it's so crazy and so out there that I sometimes don't know what to think of. But what I can say is that it made the first film better in comparison. For one thing, the story seems to be all over the place. The first movie kept the story to being cohesive and flowing, going from A to B without much distraction or destroying from the main plot. But this one doesn't seem to have a good narrative, all because of one thing, a magical book shown in the live-action segments. The movie actually opens in live action, with the island shown in the opening of SpongeBob's TV theme, which is really nice to see more of it, as a pirate named Burgerbeard takes the book from a skeleton of a king, maybe. But the book not only tells a SpongeBob story that the show can do, but it's magical in that whatever is written in the book will change the story, and the bizarre thing is, the story that is in the book is also happening to the characters in real time, making a very confusing paradox as the movie cuts back and forth between Burgerbeard reading the story and the story happening under the sea below Burgerbeard's ship. In fact, if changing the story changes the events in real time, then how did the original story end? Was it to end the same way as the movie, or was it going to be something else, even when coming from a skeleton king on the island? Because the vanishing formula was caused by Burgerbeard, who changed the story to have him use the formula to make Krabby Patties of his own. And one of the pages in the book falls in the ocean, catching the attention of Sandy Cheeks, who thinks it's a sign from the sandwich gods, and goes insane trying to find an answer to appease the gods' anger of no more Krabby Patties. And then SpongeBob and Plankton had to time travel to retrieve the formula before it disappeared, and to even end up 4 days into the future, and too far into the future, where they meet a dolphin named Bubbles who's watches all of space for many years. And the last act, where the subtitle comes from, has the characters go on land where Burgerbeard has the formula, and they use the book page to become superheroes. Yeah, it gets that crazy. And even by the end, the book gets destroyed, and all that has happened just happened. Nothing else changes, so what's the point of having the book to begin with? It makes the movie more of a mess than it already is. The first movie was pretty straightforward, and had no need of going overboard with its story by having a magical book and whatnot. But outside of the book's use, the movie seems to have pointless moments and rehashes from other SpongeBob material. And when I say pointless, I mean as more like a filler moment or something that doesn't need mentioning. Like some of the visual jokes and moments in the live-action bits felt more like showing off the technology, or something for the trailer, or just big time wasters to get from one story point to the next. Yeah, they're fun to witness, but they're mostly distractions just to entertain and not really serve the story. As for rehashes, the film has got some of them, not just from the first film, but also from the show. The characters becoming superheroes, that's been done on the show. The characters worried about going on land, there's an episode around that, albeit very humorously. SpongeBob and Plankton trying to work out together, there's like an episode or 2 around that. Introducing the characters and the rivalry between Plankton and the Krusty Krab, that's been done countless times in the show. Also pointless as we already know who these characters are and their situations. And the characters going on dry land to retrieve an important item as the film's final act? That's what the first movie did. There's even a point when the characters see a human and think it's a beached whale. I mean, come on, did this franchise forget about encountering humans in the show and meeting David Hasselhoff in the first movie? And why didn't Sandy just go up on land? She's a squirrel, she can breathe air. The show and the first movie already proved the characters have no trouble walking on dry land, so why not go and just let Bubbles help out? Is she just waiting for SpongeBob to surface and continue smelling for Krabby Patties? Couldn't she just surface and smell them herself? Okay, I think that's enough ranting for now. But let's go into more what I like about this movie. I did like seeing the human villain in this, and not something like the diver in the first film. I like the actor playing as Burger Beard, and part of his comedy did get a chuckle or a laugh out of me. Even though most of his mannerisms are similar to Jack Sparrow, but only being very silly on occasion. And the fact that he's a pirate cook does fit into the world of SpongeBob. The sequels that hang around Burger Beard are fun to watch, mainly for the cast that voiced them, including Cree Summer, Tim Conway, Eddie Deason, Billy West, Rob Paulsen, and Kevin Michael Richardson. The animated scenes are more in tune to the show than the first movie, but it does offer some nice bits. Like the flowers in the sky would move very slowly like clouds, making a nice detail. Bubbles the Dolphin is a stop-motion character against a CG background, talking to SpongeBob and Plankton, who are hand-drawn. That's kind of lovely to see. And some of the jokes did get me on occasion, like SpongeBob and Plankton using a tire to distract some guards outside the chum bucket to retrieve Karen, Plankton's computer wife. And the guards not only beat up the tire, but a few minutes later when SpongeBob and Plankton leave with Karen, the guards are still pestering the tire. That's enjoyable. And the third act, well, let's talk about that. It is kind of interesting how it's the most advertised of the whole movie. The whole segment only lasts about 20 minutes, yet a majority of the movie is hand-drawn, and only the final part is done with CGI, which is just as good as the 2D counterpart. But it's such a shame that the 2D animation didn't gain as much attention as the 3D animation when it comes to promoting the film. It just makes it pretty unfair to the hand-drawn side when very little of it is featured for promotion. Ironic as more 2D animated films are gaining attention in theaters, despite a majority of them done on animation software like Toon Boom or Flash. However, when the characters become superheroes, it becomes pretty unique. SpongeBob becomes the Invisibubble, who fires bubbles from his bubble ring helmet. Patrick becomes Mr. Super Awesomeness, who uses telekinesis to move ice cream, which usually comes to him to eat, which is kinda funny. Squidward becomes Sour Note, whose clarinet playing creates a sonic boom wave. Mr. Krabs becomes Sir Pinch-A-Lot, which is him as a robot, but with rocket claws and goes fast using rockets and wheels. Plankton becomes Plankton, a giant muscle-bound version of himself, with only his head remaining small. And Sandy becomes the Rodent, who's just her as a giant real-life squirrel. But this is definitely something to note, because in the first movie, there's a deleted scene where SpongeBob and Patrick met Sandy while on land, and she's shown as a real-life squirrel, as well as encounter human versions of themselves. And this makes it all the more interesting that a scrapped idea from the first movie ended up being used in the second movie, minus the human versions of SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidward. And the songs are alright. I mean, a couple are sung from the characters in the movie, but most of them are from big-name bands. And 2 of the songs are named after 2 characters, Patrick Star and Sandy Cheeks. So why didn't all the other characters outside of SpongeBob get their own song? But regardless, the movie overall, as a whole, is just okay. Nothing terrible, nothing great, just okay. And on a side note, the movie is dedicated to Ernest Borgnine, who voiced Mermaid Man in the show, and had passed away of kidney failure on July 8, 2012, over 2 years before this film's release. And the actors providing the voices did a good job as always. Tom Kenny voices SpongeBob SquarePants and Gary, Bill Fagerbeck voices Patrick Star, Roger Bumpus voices Squidward J. Tentacles, Doctor, and Squidosaurus Rex, Mr. Lawrence voices Sheldon J. Plankton, Plankton Robot, and News Anchor Fish, Joe Talley voices Karen the Computer Wife, Clancy Brown voices Mr. Eugene H. Krabs, Carolyn Lawrence voices Sandy Cheeks, Mary Jo Catlett voices Mrs. Puff, Matt Berry voices Bubbles, Lori Allen voices Pearl, and Antonio Banderas plays Burger Beard. As a whole, this movie is alright. The characters are still good, the story is kind of all over the place, the animation is good, the effects are nice, and the songs, when they happen, are alright. Director Paul Tippett had done an okay job of making a SpongeBob movie that, while not as grand as the first film, is a lot more silly and pretty out there. But where I originally thought it had the same feel as the first film, it kinda doesn't here, with a story that feels inconsistent, some pointless moments that almost often make the film longer, and some rehashes from both the TV show and the first movie. But as someone who enjoyed SpongeBob, I did like the movie in certain places, even when the characters become computer animated, and they look good in both 2D hand-drawn form and 3D CG form. Yet, despite all the advertising going to the final act of the characters in 3D, which is unfair to the 2D side, I still prefer the first film for being more consistent in its story and not being too crazy, as well as having all the characters be in 2D. So overall, it's okay, but not as good as the first film. So today, this movie will get a rating of 2.5+ stars. So thank you for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Facebook or Twitter, support me on Patreon, and until next time for a new video.